In this world, there is a group of people who capture monsters, explore secret realms, collect treasures, and seek fame. They are drawn to the unknown and embrace danger. They are the top beings in the world, collectively known as hunters. In a large swamp on Whale Island, 12-year-old Gon is sitting on a big tree, fishing for the kingfish. He has been motionless under a big leaf for several days. With his focused mind and harmonious connection with nature, Gon, who grew up in the forest, is as simple as eating and sleeping. Countless small animals gather around him, attracted by his natural and gentle aura. Gon was raised by Aunt Mito and his grandmother since he was young. He has never seen his father because his unreliable father, Jing, abandoned his wife and chose to pursue his dream of becoming a hunter when Gon was born. But Gon doesn't resent him. Instead, he sees becoming a hunter and finding Jing as his own goal. However, Aunt Mito naturally disagrees. She only hopes that Gon can live a normal life without any excitement. Because she knows that once Gon becomes a hunter, he will be constantly in danger, just like Jing. However, Gon has already made up his mind, so Aunt Mito reluctantly agrees that if Gon can catch the kingfish within a week, she will allow him to pursue a career as a hunter. It is almost an impossible task for a 12-year-old child, and many people can see that Aunt Mito doesn't really want Gon to take the exam because even 5 adults cannot catch the kingfish. However, Aunt Mito is actually very worried. After all, Gon is Jing's son. Jing successfully caught the kingfish at the same age. After 6 days of waiting, the kingfish finally took the bait. Gon was extremely excited. To deal with this big fish, he used the tree trunk and fishing rod under his feet to the extreme, causing the tree trunk to emit thick smoke several times. He persisted for a long time and finally used the tree trunk to slide down. He pulled up the kingfish and stomped on its head. Let me just say, the strength of this fishing rod and fishing line is amazing. When the huge kingfish was brought to the pier, the residents of Whale Island were all excited. This was a feat that hadn't been seen in 20 years. However, while Gon was overjoyed, Aunt Mito had a worried expression on her face. In the evening, while Gon was packing his things, Aunt Mito came to persuade him again. She hoped that Gon would reconsider because Jing abandoned him for the sake of becoming a hunter. However, for Gon, doesn't this just mean that being a hunter is more attractive to Jing than his family? Since being a hunter fascinated his father so much, he also wants to give it a try. Gon knows that he will encounter various dangers after becoming a hunter, but he has already made up his mind. Aunt Mito can only accept it. The next day, Gon bid farewell to Aunt Mito. With the blessings of the residents of Whale Island, he boarded a sailboat bound for the annual hunter exam in Calm Island. The boat was filled with newcomers who were going to take the hunter exam. Gon was very excited and shouted that he would come back when he became the world's #1 hunter. Some people found it funny, reminiscent of Luffy going out to sea. But Gon didn't care about the laughter of others. He wandered around and then saw Leorio's, who was wearing small sunglasses, watching Little Yellow Uncle, and Kurapika, who had a cold expression, on the deck. Later, he also met the red-nosed captain who loved to drink. Due to the fresh smell and the sea breeze, Gon could tell that a huge storm was about to come. This surprised the red-nosed captain, who had been sailing all his life. But Gon's professional action of pinching his nose and making his nose bleed clearly showed that he wasn't joking. Suddenly, the captain felt like he knew Gon. He realized that Gon was Jing's son. After receiving Gon's reminder, the red-nosed captain successfully steered the sailboat through the storm. However, the other newcomers who were taking the hunter exam had a tragic experience. They were so dizzy that they vomited, and many people even vomited bile. After the red-nosed captain came out of the cockpit, he couldn't help but marvel at the fact that these people still wanted to become hunters. Isn't this just playing? However, the red-nosed captain then saw Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio's, who didn't feel sick at all. This is the physical fitness that hunters should have. The red-nosed captain then called them together to ask why they wanted to become hunters. Gon, being pure and simple, immediately mentioned his father. But when it was Kurapika and Leorio's turn, the two tsundere individuals didn't want to answer. The red-nosed captain had no choice but to tell them that he had been screening for the Hunter Association all along. The hunter exam had actually started the moment everyone boarded the ship. So if Kurapika and Leorio's didn't want to answer, they would be eliminated. As a result, the two had no choice but to tell the truth. Kurapika revealed his identity as the last survivor of the Korta clan and emphasized that he wanted to become a hunter for revenge. On the other hand, Leorio's had a simple reason: becoming a hunter meant having a mansion, luxury cars, and fine wine. But Kurapika looked down on Leorio's crude intentions, which made Leorio's quite unhappy. Kurapika had always been calling Leorio's by his full name, which was disrespectful. So Leorio's directly provoked Kurapika and said he wanted to sever the last bloodline of the Korta clan. He challenged Kurapika to a duel. Kurapika wanted Leorio's to apologize, but in the end, he had no choice but to follow him outside. At this time, a storm suddenly appeared on the ship, and almost everyone was desperately holding onto the sails to control the direction of the ship. Only Kurapika and Leorio stood at the side of the ship, allowing the storm and the splashing seawater to baptize them. Neither of them was willing to back down. But just as they were about to take out their weapons to fight, a crew member was suddenly blown towards them by the strong wind. It looked like he was about to fall into the sea. Unexpectedly, at this moment, both of them acted at the same time. They put down their weapons and immediately grabbed onto the side of the ship, trying to catch the crew member's foot. But in the end, they were a step too late. However, at this moment, Gon flew over, completely ignoring his own safety. He grabbed the crew member, and Kurapika and Leorio's grabbed onto Gon. Thanks to their cooperation, everyone was safe. Because of their teamwork, Kurapika and Leorio finally reconciled. They each saw the shining points in each other. The red-nosed captain appeared and said that only the three of them met the requirements to participate in the test. Gon was overjoyed. Finally, they arrived at Doll Harbor. The red-nosed captain told them that if they walked towards the direction of the big tree on the mountaintop, they would reach the test site faster. Gon happily ran off to tell Kurapika and Leorio this news. However, Leorio was puzzled because the direction of the big tree was clearly opposite to the direction of the test site mentioned in the notification. Leorio decided to go alone, but he hadn't walked a few steps when he heard the news from the path. He immediately ran back. The three of them then followed the direction of the big tree and walked through the city. When they reached an alley, they were suddenly blocked by an old man and several strange masked people. The old man nervously claimed to be in charge of the hunter exam and asked them to answer a multiple-choice question within 5 seconds. This made Leorio's a bit confused. Is it one question for the three of them? But just then, a young man suddenly appeared behind them. Seeing that the three of them were hesitating, he decided to answer first. Leorio's and the others had no objections. After all, they could also see what the question was. Unexpectedly, when the old man asked the question, everyone was stunned. The question was, if your mother and girlfriend fell into a river, who would you save? The young man immediately answered that he would save his mother. However, after the old man let the young man go, Leorio's was indignant. He loudly criticized the question as being unreasonable. How could there be a correct answer with just one sentence? This question is subjective and varies from person to person. But Leorio's words seemed to enlighten Kurapika, who suddenly had an epiphany. Seeing that Kurapika was about to say something to Leorio's, the old man quickly issued a gag order. She then calmly presented another question. When both the daughter and son are kidnapped, who would you save? The 5-second countdown began. Leorio's had gone crazy. He picked up a wooden stick and charged at the old man in the last second. Fortunately, Kurapika appeared in time and blocked him. Seeing that Leorio's was still ranting, Kurapika had no choice but to calm him down and tell him that they had already passed. The correct answer to this question was silence because, as Leorio said, there is no standard answer. But Leorio's outburst clearly showed his hot temper. Fortunately, the old man didn't mind. On the contrary, she thought Leorio's was righteous. If it were someone else, they would have eliminated Leorio's long ago. Although they passed this round, Gon was still squatting on the ground, unable to understand. He really didn't know how to choose if he encountered such a situation. In fact, the old man was using this question to tell Gon and the others about the situations they might face in the future. Becoming a hunter is not as simple as they think. Finally, the old man opened a path for them to find a couple under the big tree. They were the guides for the hunter exam. The three of them set off again. Although the old man said it would take 2 hours, they ended up walking for more than 4 hours. Fortunately, they soon discovered a small wooden house. Otherwise, Leorio's would definitely suspect that the old man was lying. However, when Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio's pushed open the door of the wooden house, they saw a fox-like monster that had already knocked down the guide's husband. It was holding the wife, and when it saw Kurapika and the others come in, its eyes turned red and it laughed sinisterly. Then it took the woman and ran out. At first, Leorio's was a little confused. It was his first time seeing something like this, but Kurapika told him that it was a shape-shifting monster called a Kiriko, which was skilled at transforming into a human form. After the Kuriko took the guide's wife and left, Kurapika asked Leorios to stay and treat the husband's injuries, while he and Gon followed the Kuriko. The two sides engaged in a fierce battle in the forest. Gon's speed and agility surprised Kurapika, who was amazed. When Gon found out that the Kuriko could speak human language, he became even more excited. He then used a fishing rod to knock the Kuriko down from midair, successfully saving the woman. Gon continued to chase after the Kuriko, while Kurapika stayed behind to take care of the guide's wife. However, Kurapika noticed something unusual about the woman's tattoo and eyes. Leorios was about to say something when Kurapika suddenly felt that something was wrong. Without waiting for Leorios to finish speaking, Kurapika immediately struck him with a stick. It turned out that the couple were actually the Kuriko in disguise. Meanwhile, on Gon's side, he had lost track of the Kuriko. Just when he was feeling a little lost, the Kuriko suddenly appeared in front of him, jumping down from a tree and raising its long claws to attack. Gon wanted to see how powerful the Kuriko was, but at that moment, Gon looked at the Kuriko in front of him with confusion and asked, "Who are you? Wasn't it you that I hit earlier?" It turned out that Gon could actually distinguish the appearance and voice of the Kuriko. This surprised the Kuriko in front of Gon, who burst into laughter. He never expected that there would be humans who could distinguish Kuriko. In the end, the three of them returned to the little monster. The four Kuriko evaluated the three of them and they all met the requirements of the hunter exam. Although Leorios didn't notice anything unusual, Kurapika observed everything meticulously and was the first to see through the deception. As for Gon, his unparalleled physical abilities and observation skills were even more surprising. After passing the qualification test, they were taken by the Kuriko to the location of the hunter exam. Interestingly, the Kuriko hands could actually be used for flying, fulfilling the dreams of countless humans. After flying overnight, Gon and the others finally arrived at the test site, which turned out to be hidden underground in a noodle shop. As the elevator descended, Kurapika and Leorios argued about what hunters should do. Leorio stubbornly wanted to become a super rich person by becoming a hunter, while Kurapika believed that hunters should protect humans and the natural environment. Apart from that, everything else was ink flow. The two of them argued more and more, and even wanted Gon to take a stand. Fortunately, the elevator door opened and the three of them finally saw the real test site. It was crowded with people, and the gazes of these people towards the newcomers were clearly wary. Just when the three of them were still at a loss, Mr. Bean handed them number plates. After receiving the number plates, a big-browed uncle suddenly greeted them friendly. He shamelessly claimed that he had participated in the experiment 35 times and was the most senior among the people. But what was there to be proud of? Leorios and Kurapika were very surprised, only Gon remained calm. The big-browed uncle, named Tampa, then introduced some people in the crowd who had participated in several experiments. Just as he was chatting with Gon, a scream suddenly came from the crowd. A big brother's hands dissipated like petals because he accidentally bumped into Hisoka and didn't apologize. He was publicly executed by Hisoka. At this time, Hisoka innocently claimed that he didn't do anything, as if everyone around was a fool. Tampa saw the appearance of Hisoka, the big boss, and was also very frightened. This guy was supposed to pass the oath last year, but suddenly attacked the chief examiner he didn't like, almost killing him. So don't mess with this lunatic. After saying these things, Tampa took out several cans of juice and gave them to Gon and the others. At this time, the crowd turned their attention to this side. It turned out that Tampa was actually a newcomer killer. He had injected super laxatives into the juice. He had always disguised himself as a kind person and approached the newcomers of the hunter's test, trying to eliminate the competition in this way. However, Tampa was stunned when he saw Gon and the others spit out the juice immediately after drinking it. Gon said that the juice had expired, so it tasted strange. But the laxative was colorless and tasteless. Tampa couldn't understand the situation. Gon told him that he had grown up eating white grass and had developed a sensitive taste, so he could taste any strange flavor. Tampa quickly knelt down and apologized, and then left embarrassedly. He was indignant and felt that this year's newcomers were becoming more and more difficult to deal with. How could there be so many weird newcomers? That weird bald guy, the skinny guy, who was constantly shaking his head while walking, and that annoying fat guy. This guy thought he knew everything just because he had a laptop. He completely didn't give a chance to these newcomer killers. At this time, Killua, who was holding a skateboard, suddenly appeared. He specifically went to find Tampa for a can of juice. Killua arrogantly told Tampa not to worry, as he was completely ineffective against his alone. He then provocatively told Tampa to control himself, otherwise he would never become a hunter. After Killua left gracefully, a bell suddenly rang and a stone door slowly opened. Then, Saditz, who had a high recognition, appeared in front of everyone. After briefly telling everyone that he was the examiner of the first test, he quickly led everyone to the side. However, he walked while the others had to run. They ran for a while and didn't know how long they had been running. Now everyone had to hurry to participate in the second test, but the time and location were unknown. Many people were a little panicked because of this, but Gon, Leorio's, and Kurapika were not affected at all. They were still moving forward. 2 hours had passed, and the candidates had already run at least 30 kilometers. Many people were exhausted and dropped out of the race. Among the crowd, the fat guy seemed particularly clever. He ran while calculating that the entire distance of the race should be about 40 kilometers, so the finish line should be ahead. The fat guy happily ran ahead, humming and crying. When he was out of breath and tears were streaming down his face, Leorio suddenly noticed that Killua was cheating by using a skateboard. This was cheating. How could he use tools? But Killua looked innocent and even asked Leorio's, "What are you talking about?" At this point, Gon caught up from behind and told Leorio's that the examiner only said to follow him, but didn't say how to follow. This really impressed Killua, so after learning that Gon was the same age as him, Killua decided to put away his skateboard and run with this peer. Time passed minute by minute, and the predicted 40 kilometers by the fat guy had long been exceeded, but there was still no end to the tunnel. He was sweating profusely and his vision was starting to blur. Finally, he gave up and kneeled on the ground. In fact, the three brothers were mocking the fat guy because Tanpa had bribed them. Tanpa felt that this was his purpose for existence. At this time, there were not many people left who could still run after the examiner. Kurapika predicted that they had run more than 60 kilometers. Leorio seemed to be unable to run anymore. Was it going to end like this? He stopped running and started to pant heavily. Fortunately, shortly after, Leorio's burst out with an astonishing force. He threw away the suitcase he was holding and rushed out like a whirlwind. He didn't want to be eliminated like this. After surpassing 80 kilometers, the road became more and more difficult to walk. Many people were crawling up the stairs. Leorio's prediction was that they had already run more than 80 kilometers. Leorio's had already taken off his clothes, and Kurapika also took off his coat when he saw this. The two of them ran side by side, talking about their worries as they ran. The stairs seemed to stretch endlessly, and the use of tricks accelerated their pace, causing more exhausted people. However, Killua and Gon were still acting as if nothing was wrong. They ran and talked, saying that the hunter exam was nothing special. Killua participated in the test just to pass the time, while Gon wanted to become a hunter like his father, even though he had never met him. This surprised Killua. Finally, they reached the exit of the tunnel and jumped out together. They couldn't determine who was first, so they argued about it. Their energetic appearance left Saditz dumbfounded. Finally, everyone arrived at the exit of the tunnel and realized that they were on a large lawn. Saditz said this place was called Swindler's Swamp, also known as the Nest of Deception. There were countless monsters in this forest that would deceive and eat people. He warned everyone to stay close behind him. However, at this moment, a guy with yellow hair suddenly jumped out from behind a wall. He pointed at Saditz and said he was lying, that he was a fake examiner. The guy brought over a monkey that looked almost identical to Saditz. He said this monkey, called a man-faced ape, was the best at disguising as a human. He wanted to lure the candidates into Swindler's Swamp and eat them. Hearing this, the candidates started discussing and many, including Hanzo and Leorio's, believed the guy with yellow hair. But then, several playing cards flew out and knocked down the guy with yellow hair and the monkey. Saditz caught the cards and said that the real examiner must be a professional hunter who could easily dodge such attacks. So, without a doubt, Saditz was the real examiner. After this encounter, the candidates had even more respect and fear for this wetland. They followed Saditz closely and dared not fall behind. However, many candidates in the wetlands started getting separated. At the same time, a few candidates who were following Hisoka showed some unusual behavior. They actually wanted to kill Hisoka. But how could Hisoka not notice? The faint killing intent emanating from him immediately alerted Killua, who pulled Gon along and ran ahead, intending to distance themselves from Hisoka. So Gon quickly called Leorio's and Kurapika to join them. However, Leorio's and Kurapika were already too exhausted. They ran behind the crowd and soon saw heads falling from the front. This shocked Leorio's, and he and Kurapika quickly stopped to check. They discovered that there were many large strawberries growing around them. One candidate tried to go closer to see what was happening but was immediately grabbed and eaten by a large monster called a strawberry turtle. It had deceived the candidates in the wetland, making them think their companions were running ahead, when in fact, the figure in front was this large turtle. Now, the candidates were scattered and the strawberry turtles surrounded them, ready to feast on them. On the other side, the unlucky candidates encountered terrifying mushrooms on the ground and butterflies in the sky. The sudden chaos caused many to lose their sense of direction, and they couldn't find the examiner anywhere. Fortunately, at this moment, a familiar voice sounded ahead. Many immediately ran towards the voice, but unexpectedly, it was a huge trap. Many candidates who ran too fast fell into the trap and were pierced by spikes at the bottom. It turned out that the one in the wetland was a ruse raven. It could mimic human voices. Killua and Gon continued running in the wetland, with screams coming from all directions. Gon seemed a bit reluctant, but Killua told him not to interfere. Deception was everywhere, and if they weren't careful, they would fall into the monster's traps. Just then, Killua and Gon suddenly fell into the mouth of a lazy toad. Fortunately, the lazy toad immediately felt uncomfortable and spat them out. It seemed that the taste of the two boys was not good. In fact, it was because Killua had opened a can of juice given by Tanpa inside the lazy toad's stomach. After standing up, Killua told Gon to leave with him. However, Gon suddenly looked back and felt that Leorio's and Kurapika were in danger. At this moment, Leorio's was indeed fighting a strawberry turtle. He used a stick to support the strawberry turtle's big mouth, which looked very dangerous. Fortunately, at the critical moment, Kurapika took action and saved them. Afterwards, they continued running forward in the mist and suddenly found Hisoka ahead. He was surrounded by the people who had planned to kill him. These people believed that Hisoka, who was so cruel, did not deserve to be a hunter. They wanted Hisoka to withdraw from the competition, but Hisoka calmly took out a 4 of spades. This made the angry crowd rush towards him, but Hisoka only lightly drew a circle with his playing card, and all the people who rushed towards him fell to the ground dead. Hisoka then walked slowly towards Kurapika and Leorio's, making them extremely nervous. Kurapika told Leorio's not to act recklessly and that they could only escape. Therefore, when Hisoka slowly raised his arm to shoot the playing card, they quickly jumped up and ran to the sides. Hisoka admired their clever judgment. However, to his surprise, Leorio's, who had a muscular build, came back and roared as he charged towards Hisoka. Hisoka thought it was a smart move to not just flee without doing anything. But the difference between the two was too great, and Leorio's couldn't even touch Hisoka's body. Just as Leorio's was about to be in danger, Gon suddenly appeared and hit Hisoka's face with a heavy swing of his fishing rod. It turned out that Gon had arrived. At this moment, Hisoka had no anger in his mind. Instead, he was very interested in Gon's fishing rod. But as he slowly walked towards Gon, Leorio suddenly launched another attack from behind. Hisoka easily dodged it and punched Leorio's in the face, knocking him out. Meanwhile, Gon used his fishing rod to attack, but it only hit a cloud of smoke when it landed on Hisoka's body. Gon was truly shocked, but he continued to swing his fishing rod in an attempt to attack. However, it was all in vain. In the end, Hisoka simply raised his hand and grabbed Gon by the neck. As Gon struggled, Hisoka's face turned red. He enjoyed this feeling and expression so much. Just as Gon was about to be choked to death, Hisoka suddenly let go and gently told him that Leorio's was still alive and had passed the test. Gon had also passed, so he should become a good hunter. This scene left Gon bewildered. Was this person crazy? At that moment, Hisoka's communicator suddenly rang. Someone was calling him to return to the team. After confirming that Gon could still act alone, Hisoka carried Leorio's and walked into the mansion. He was worried that Leorio's would be eliminated. It was now noon, and the participants gradually dispersed. Gon followed the scent of perfume on Leorio's and found Kurapika. He still couldn't understand Hisoka's actions just now. Kurapika speculated that Hisoka might be playing a long game. He sensed the potential and future growth of Leorio's and Gon, so he felt it would be a waste to kill them now. Kurapika really thought that Hisoka was a dangerous person. Finally, they reached the end of the forest and met up with the rest of the group. They found that Leorio's was indeed alive, but his face was swollen like a steamed bun, and he had lost his memory from being hit. Killua was also happy to see Gon. After Saditz left, the castle gates slowly opened. The examiners for the second test, Menchi and Bohara, were waiting inside. They were both sexy women. Menchi informed everyone that the second test would be cooking. This made the participants unhappy because they came to become hunters, not chefs. However, as the examiner, Menchi insisted on testing whatever she wanted. Both Hachi and Buhara are food hunters, so they laughed when they heard this. They completely disrespect food hunters. However, despite the laughter, everyone still decided to participate in the experiment. Buhara then announced that the ingredients for cooking must be pigs from the Biscuit Canyon. As long as they can make a dish that satisfies both of them, they will pass. The candidates quickly ran to the forest to find pigs, but they underestimated the situation. Those pigs are not the gentle and innocent type. The pigs in the Biscuit Canyon are fierce beasts that eat meat without spitting out bones. Their big noses are huge and hard. Gon and his friends were chased by the pigs and the pig army knocked over countless roasts, appearing unstoppable. Fortunately, when a big pig attacked Gon, he discovered that the forehead of these pigs is their weakest point. With his prompt, many roasts quickly caught these pink pigs and everyone started roasting the fat pigs. However, after the food was roasted, although Buhara almost accepted everyone's dishes, Menchi was very picky. She was not satisfied with the color, aroma, and taste of almost everyone's dishes. And why is everyone so uncreative and just roasting? Seeing one roast after another being eliminated by Menchi, Gon and his friends started thinking of ways. They planned to win by surprise. Leorio's made a children's meal, Gon made a spring-limited cherry blossom dish, and Kurapika was somewhat creative. He made a pork and vegetable lasagna that looked pleasing to Menchi, but it was still useless when tasted. Therefore, at the end of the assessment, none of the candidates met Menchi's standards, so they were all disqualified. Menchi asked the candidates to come back next year. This made everyone anxious. Biscuit felt innocent and wondered what kind of tricks they could make with pigs. And a guy with a ponytail even directly challenged Menchi, saying that they came to be hunters, not foodies, and wanted to rush over to beat Menchi. Unexpectedly, he was punched by Buhara and flew away, which made the crowd even more angry. Fortunately, at this time, an airship floated down from the sky and a voice came from inside, saying that Menchi was a bit too harsh. The old man who jumped off the airship was the highest commander of the Hunter Association, Chairman Netero. Under Chairman Netero's seemingly sincere but cunning eyes, Menchi reflected on herself and realized that she was indeed too strict with the candidates. She shouldn't have unconsciously raised the assessment standards because they looked down on food hunters. So Chairman Netero suggested giving the candidates another chance. But this time, Menchi herself would also participate. Menchi thought for a moment and decided that they would all make boiled eggs together. Then the candidates were taken to a cliff where the valley below was full of spider silk and eggs of the spider. These eggs were the ingredients for this competition. Menchi kept her promise and took the lead by jumping off the cliff and hanging on a spider silk. After sensing something, she immediately let go and grabbed the eggs of the pigs. Everyone was amazed to see Menchi fall straight down the cliff and hang on a spider silk. But then she was blown back to the cliff by a gust of wind. So Menchi made an example. Gon, Killua, Leorios, and Kurapika jumped off the cliff and more people followed. They all hung on the pig net, waiting for the opportunity. Some couldn't hold on and fell to their deaths at the bottom of the cliff, while others jumped too early. Fortunately, Gon was very sensitive to the wind and under his command, most of the people who jumped off the cliff took off the eggs in the end. Gon and the others who got the spider eggs were happy to eat the delicious food. Everyone felt that this was simply a dream egg. Those who didn't dare to jump could only watch. Gon even shared his eggs with the guy with the ponytail. After taking a bite, he finally admitted that it was really delicious. At this time, Menchi told everyone that the top ingredients are usually in the most dangerous places. The dishes they make through their efforts are the most delicious things in the world. Food hunters are willing to risk their lives for this. The guy with the ponytail and Gon and his friends were convinced. They were determined to come back next year to participate in the test. There are only 42 candidates left in the second round. I wonder how many of them can hold on until the end. Gon and the others successfully passed the second test and took an airship to the venue of the third test. Now there are only 42 candidates left. Chairman Netero told everyone that they could freely move around before 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Gon and Killua cheered and happily went to play after hearing this news, while Leorio sighed as he watched the energetic two. Why are they so tired when they are just children? The big boy just wants to find a place to sleep well now. But when Kurapika and Leorios turned around to go back to their rooms to rest, they were suddenly stopped by Tanpa. Tanpa reminded them that although Chairman Netero said they would arrive at the destination before 8 o'clock in the morning, he didn't say that the third test would start at 8 o'clock in the morning. This airship is likely to be the venue for the third test, so everyone must not relax and be prepared at all times. Leorio's was very grateful to Tampa for telling them this valuable experience, but Tampa immediately changed his attitude. He deliberately made a fuss in order to prevent Leorio's and Kurapika from resting peacefully. This way, when they arrive at the test venue tomorrow morning, they will be exhausted and definitely won't pass. However, Leorio's, although worried, was not affected at all and fell asleep in a second. On the airship, the examiners were discussing the qualifications of this year's candidates. Satatsu, Menchi, and Bohara, the three examiners, unanimously felt that Hisoka was the most worthy of attention among all the candidates. His aura from the beginning made all the examiners feel creepy. Menchi was particularly sensitive and excited because she sensed his presence during the wild boar race. Compared to others who had ulterior motives, Killua and Gon were simply happy. They ate stolen chicken legs while enjoying the beautiful night scenery outside the airship. Gon couldn't help but be curious about Killua's gentlemanly demeanor. He asked Killua what his parents did, and Killua answered seriously that his whole family were top-level assassins, and he was the most promising successor chosen by the family. However, Killua didn't want to follow the path laid out by the adults. He wanted to decide his own future. So after a big fight with his family, Killua ran away from home and decided to become a hunter. If he became a hunter, the first thing he would do is to take care of his family and collect a huge bounty on the heads of the killers. Killua felt happy just thinking about it. Seeing Gon's trusting expression, he was also surprised. Why didn't he think he was scary? The two children were chatting happily, but suddenly they felt a strong presence behind them. They immediately turned around but found nothing. At this moment, Chairman Netero walked towards them from the front and greeted the two. Killua was already on guard. He knew that the presence just now must have been Chairman Netero, but the chairman seemed to be in a good mood and didn't care about Killua's guard. Instead, he proposed to play a game with the two children. If they win, he will let them become hunters without taking the test. The chairman then took the children to a room and quickly took out a ball, telling them that no matter what method they use, if they can take the ball from him before 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, he will let them pass the test. Killua suddenly showed many clones behind him, using a classic assassination technique called rhythm echo. Netero was very impressed that Killua, at such a young age, could use such a technique. At this time, Killua had already found the opportunity to attack the chairman, but the chairman looked like an old bone, but he was very agile and Killua couldn't get close to him. So Killua kicked him from below, trying to knock the chairman down, but the chairman, although standing on one leg, was very stable and Killua couldn't move his leg and almost broke his own leg. Next, it was Gon's turn to play. Gon didn't have many fancy skills. He rushed up and went straight for the ball in the chairman's hand. But he jumped too high and hit the ceiling, which surprised Netero. This kid's explosive power is too strong. 3 hours passed, and Killua and Gon had already started to team up against the chairman, but they were always just a little short. Gon and Killua were exhausted and out of breath, and they were always being teased by the chairman. Surprisingly, Netero, the chairman, remained calm and composed. Gon then started to use tactics. He suddenly burst forward and used his loose boot as a weapon to kick the chairman's chin. At the same time, Killua suddenly attacked from behind. In this way, the ball quickly slipped out of the chairman's hands. Just as Killua was about to grab the ball, the chairman suddenly performed a scorpion tail sweep. Fortunately, Gon, who was behind him, used his boot to hit the ball first. However, just as Gon and Killua were about to grab the ball, the chairman suddenly burst forward and snatched the ball away. Looking at the smoking footprints left by the chairman, Gon was extremely excited, but Killua was angry. He picked up his clothes and was about to leave, which puzzled Gon. It turned out that Killua had discovered that the chairman's right hand and left foot were useless. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't win against the chairman. Gon decided to stay and not give up. His goal was no longer to grab the ball, but to force the chairman to use his right hand. This surprised Killua. Killua eventually left the scene, feeling very unhappy. His killer instinct was telling him that if he continued the game, he might not be able to control himself. On Gon's side, he no longer cared about anything. He kept increasing his speed and started using his head to attack. In the end, in order to prevent Gon from being seriously injured, the chairman finally reluctantly used his right hand. Gon's head finally hit the table, but he was not discouraged at all. He happily fell asleep. The next morning, the airship arrived at the location of the third test. Unexpectedly, it was on a tall cylindrical building. The bean-faced man told everyone that the content of the third test was to stay alive and descend from the top of the tower to the ground within 72 hours. Gon looked down and was a little at a loss. It was too high. At this moment, a strong man appeared, flipping down from the top of the tower and starting to climb down. As an expert climber, the strong man felt that this height was nothing. But just as the strong man climbed down a few meters, he heard a strange sound. A group of bald monsters with wings and open mouths flew towards the strong man. The 4 monsters flew past and the strong man instantly disappeared. Now everyone was dumbfounded. It seemed that they couldn't go down directly. Was there any other way to go down? Some candidates started to pry the floor of the top of the tower. Unexpectedly, not long after, some candidates found some secret doors. Gon and the others fell directly into a small room through these secret doors. On the wall, there was a small platform with 5 bracelets. The bracelet had a circle and a cross button. Gon and the others just put on these bracelets when the broadcast speaker sounded. Lippo, who was hiding behind many monitors, as the examiner of the third test, told the 4 people the rules of the test. There are several passages in this tower that lead to the underground. If you want to go down, you must cooperate as a team and obey the majority. At this time, a group of people wearing shackles and robes appeared. They also wanted to participate in this test. Because this path could not accommodate 5 people, the test could not start without another person. Gon and the others looked at each other. They only had 4 people. It seemed that they had to wait for another person to start the test. The countdown for the test began, 72 hours. But Gon and the others waited for a long time, and the 5th person still didn't come down. Just when they were about to give up, a hidden door above suddenly flipped open and Tampa fell down. As Tampa put on the bracelet, the experiment finally started. A door appeared in front of them with instructions to open it by pressing circles or crosses. They used their bracelets to vote, with 4 votes for circles and 1 vote for crosses. The majority voted for circles, and the door opened smoothly. Leorio's was very curious about who voted for crosses, but Tampa claimed it was a mistake. Leorio's didn't believe him and got really angry. Soon, they reached another fork in the road. Choosing circles meant going right, while choosing crosses meant going left. The vote resulted in 3 votes for circles and 2 votes for crosses. Leorio's was a bit worried because they should have chosen the left path. Kurapika knew that Leorio's might subconsciously want to go left when feeling confused, so he teased Leorio's about choosing left or right. Leorio's reluctantly followed the others and went right. They soon arrived at a dead end with a deep abyss below and a dueling platform in the middle. On the other side of the platform, several prisoners with shackles appeared. Then Lippo's voice suddenly came out, demanding that the group must compete against the prisoners. If they win 3 battles, they can pass this level. What they didn't know was that these prisoners had already made a deal with the prison. If they could delay the examinees for an hour, they would reduce their sentence by 1 year. The battle was about to begin, and the prisoner on the other side was afraid that a bald robber would come out. But unexpectedly, Tampa volunteered to go first. This surprised Leorio's because Tampa didn't seem like the type of person who would risk his life for his teammates. Tampa explained that if he didn't do this, no one would trust him later. So, Tampa stepped onto the dueling platform. But as soon as he got on the platform, the robber declared that he wanted a fight to the death. Tampa actually did not refuse this proposal at all. The 2 immediately prepared to attack, but as a result, after the bald robber rushed forward, their fists were about to collide. At that moment Tampa suddenly knelt down and begged for mercy. This was Tampa's usual way of doing things. Surprisingly, the bald robber agreed to spare him. Tampa didn't care about Leorio's accusations and admitted that he didn't want to be a hunter and was only here for fun. His goal was to destroy the dreams and confidence of the newcomers. This game had satisfied him so far, so he didn't care about winning or losing. Leorio's was furious and wanted to punch him, but Kurapika stopped him. The second prisoner to participate in the battle was a skinny bomb user. Gon raised his hand and volunteered to fight. The bomb user on the platform suggested playing a simple game. He took out 2 candles and said that both of them should light their candles at the same time. Whoever's candle goes out first loses. But the 2 candles were obviously different lengths. The bomb user said that the decision of which candle to choose should be made by Gon's team members. Choosing the longer candle meant pressing circles, while choosing the shorter candle meant pressing crosses. The pressure was on Leorio's and the others. Normally, everyone would choose the longer candle, but what if the longer candle had been tampered with by the bomb user? But what if the bomb user had anticipated this and tampered with the shorter candle instead? This question really stumped Gon's teammates. Kurapika decided to let Gon make the decision himself, as his wild intuition might be more reliable than their careful deliberation. Gon didn't hesitate and chose the longer candle. Then Gon and the bomb guy lit the candles together. Soon, a cold wind suddenly blew up from below the arena. Gon's candle was longer, so he had to work harder to block the wind and prevent the candle from extinguishing. However, suddenly, the flame of the candle in his hand suddenly increased. In this way, the candle that was supposed to burn for several hours might be burned out in a few minutes. Leorio's was furious. The long candle was indeed tampered with. What they didn't know was that the bomb guy had 4 candles in his pocket. No matter how Gon and the others chose, the bomb guy would tamper with the 4 candles and give them to Gon. Seeing the situation on the opposite side, the bomb guy couldn't help but admire his clever mind. But at this moment, Gon suddenly had a flash of inspiration. He put the burning candle on the ground. Since the flame of the candle was so fierce, he didn't worry about it being blown out by the wind below. So after Gon put down the candle, he took a step forward and stood in front of the bomb guy. He gently blew on the candle in the bomb guy's hand, and it went out. The third match was Kurapika against the prisoner, Mechtani. Mechtani showed off his slim muscles and claimed that he had already killed 19 people. But he didn't like the number 19 and hoped to make it 20. So Kurapika was the crucial 20th person for him. Mechtani planned to fight Kurapika to the death and would not allow surrender. Mechtani was actually bluffing. He wanted to intimidate Kurapika and scare him. He thought that if he scared him, he would win half the battle. But unexpectedly, Kurapika calmly agreed to Mechtani's rules. Mechtani realized that things were not going well and quickly laughed and threatened to break Kurapika's bones and tendons after the battle. Mechtani thought that he had definitely scared Kurapika, but Kurapika remained calm. This made Mechtani a little speechless. Seeing that all his threats had no effect, he finally decided to use his ultimate move. He took a deep breath, and then his muscles began to swell, which made Leorio's feel very terrified. However, Killua and Gon noticed that the only thing Mechtani had was his mouth. Then, Mechtani jumped up and punched the floor in front of Kurapika, shattering it. He then turned around, revealing a tattoo of a spider with 12 legs on his back. This tattoo was the symbol of the Phantom Troop. Mechtani had planned to show off his powerful steel fist and then reveal the Phantom Troop's mark, thinking that it would scare Kurapika. However, Kurapika couldn't control his emotions when he saw the spider tattoo. His eyes suddenly turned blood red, startling Mechtani. Mechtani was about to express his concern for Kurapika's mental state when Kurapika grabbed him by the head and lifted him up. Mechtani was on the verge of tears and begged for mercy, but Kurapika punched him, rendering him unable to move. Kurapika's voice was cold as he told Mechtani that the members of the Phantom Troop don't keep track of how many people they've killed, and their tattoos definitely have numbers. He warned Mechtani never to mention the Phantom Troop again, or else he would send him to hell. Kurapika coldly walked away and sat down on the ground, leaving Leorio's feeling a chill. From now on, he couldn't bear to see the spider tattoo again. It was now Leo's turn to fight. But when the prisoners reached the duel stage, they said that the previous battle had not ended yet. This was because Mechtani and Kurapika had agreed to a fight to the death, meaning that one side had to kill the other. However, Mechtani had only passed out and not died, nor did he beg for mercy. So the battle had not ended naturally. Leo's was a bit frustrated and urged Kurapika to finish off Mechtani quickly, but Kurapika refused to deliver the final blow. As time passed, Leo became increasingly anxious and wanted to bang his head against the wall, but Kurapika insisted on waiting for Mechtani to wake up and surrender. Helpless, Leo suggested a vote to decide whether to give Mechtani the final blow. Those in favor would press the circle button, and those against would press the cross button. However, when the button was pressed, the display screen next to it showed no response. It seemed that this vote couldn't be initiated just because the candidates wanted to. Leorio decided to raise his hand to vote. But he was the only one in favor of giving the Mechtani the final blow. Leorio's felt unwilling but had no choice. At this moment, visible cracks appeared in the 5-person team. Leorio's was certain that he had been isolated. While the others were in a panic, Hisoka entered a secret room. Inside, a scar-faced man was smiling at Hisoka. He was an examiner from last year, but Hisoka had disfigured him, so this year he was seeking revenge. He had been training for a long time for this. Hisoka showed no fear and even felt like laughing. He watched as the scar-faced man took out 2 curved knives, thinking that he had started using dual wielding after not seeing each other for a year. But the scar-faced man then threw 2 knives into the air, revealing a 4-knife style stronger than Zoro's. However, the scar-faced man clearly didn't know Zoro, as his curved knives were more like boomerangs that he could control. Under his control, the 4 curved knives began to attack Hisoka from all directions. However, Hisoka remained calm and effortlessly maneuvered through the flying knives. In the end, he even caught 2 of the knives and used them for himself. Hisoka found it a bit troublesome to dodge the flying knives, so he decided to take the initiative to attack. He also started using the flying knives, which shocked the scar-faced man. Soon, Hisoka defeated the scar-faced man and successfully completed the 3rd trial, becoming the first candidate to complete the test. At this time, Gon and the others were still waiting anxiously for the awakening of Mechtani. Mechtani had been sleeping for several hours but showed no signs of waking up. Leo and the others began to suspect that he had passed away, but the prisoners on the other side insisted that Mechtani had only fainted. Both sides held their ground. Helpless, the prisoners proposed a bet, with 50 hours as the wager, until one side had no time left. The person who dared to bet against Leo was a gambling girl who had been imprisoned for selling rare creatures and gambling. The gambling girl told Leo that if she lost, their sentences would be extended by 50 years. Only if Leo agreed to the gambling request would she allow him to check. So Leo resolutely accepted this gamble. While others were betting their sentences, he was only betting some time. How could he back down? Leo then stepped onto the duel stage. The first thing they bet on was whether Mechtani was alive or dead. Leo planned to use 10 hours to bet that the blue giant was still alive. Now it was time to reveal the answer. Leo went forward to check Mechtani's pulse. Sure enough, Mechtani was still alive. But this was very disadvantageous for Gon and the others. Killua said that if Mechtani continued to lie there until the end of the experiment, the prisoners' sentences would be reduced by 72 years, but they would be eliminated. Now it was Leo's turn to bet against the gambling girl. Unexpectedly, Leo pointed at Mechtani and said that he wanted to bet on whether Mechtani was really unconscious. This made Gon and the others have to admire Leo. He really had ideas. The lying Mechtani was a bit confused. He was indeed pretending to be unconscious. When the gambling girl first came into contact with Mechtani, she had given him a note, which said to maintain the state of unconsciousness in order to delay time. So Mechtani had been pretending to be unconscious all along, just to cooperate with the gambling girl's performance. But now that the gambling had started, Mechtani was laughing inside. He would definitely pretend to be dead to the end. At this moment, the gambling girl finally changed her mind at the critical moment and bet that Mechtani was not really unconscious, with a wager of 40 hours. Leo readily accepted. However, both the gambling girl and Mechtani were curious about how Leo would verify whether it was real unconsciousness or pretending. Leo didn't say much. He went straight over and lifted the limp Mechtani, carrying him to the edge of the duel stage. Leo says that if Mechtani is truly fainting, then when he pushes him, he will definitely fall and die. If he is pretending, Mechtani will surely struggle and resist. Mechtani, on the edge of the cliff, is already sweating profusely with fear. Finally, at the last moment, the gambling girl changes her mind and bets that Mechtani is not truly fainting, doubling the wager to 40 hours. Immediately, Leo decisively lets go. Mechtani, seeing himself about to fall into the abyss, is so scared that he no longer cares about pretending to faint, desperately struggling and calling for help. In the end, Leo finally intervenes, pulling Mechtani back to safety. Mechtani grumbles and leaves the battlefield, admitting defeat. At least he can save his own life. This time, Leo loses 40 hours, but he is confident that they have already won twice. As long as they win one more time, they can smoothly pass through. Next, Leo points at the gambling girl, signaling her to quickly present the next challenge. However, the gambling girl directly reveals the cloak covering her body. Leo is instantly dumbfounded. His opponent is actually such a beautiful girl, simply amazing. Then, the gambling girl unexpectedly announces that the next bet is on her gender, whether she is male or female. Leo is stunned. From any angle, the gambling girl should be a girl, right? Is she a transgender? Leo hurries to push away this thought from his mind. But at this moment, Leo still has a concern. How should he verify if his guess is correct? The gambling girl is very generous, saying that Leo can thoroughly inspect her, allowing him to check however he wants. This statement immediately leads the long-single Leo uncle to have improper thoughts. However, at this moment, Kurapika suddenly feels uneasy. Leo will definitely bet that the gambling girl is a man. As soon as the words fell, Leorio stated his bet. He bet that in 10 hours, he could determine if the gambling girl was actually a boy. At this moment, Gon was very curious as to why Kurapika guessed Leorio's decision. Kurapika, with a black line on his face, told Gon that it was because he understood the psychology of a gambler. Even if the girl was actually a girl, Leorio's could still thoroughly check her body. Leorio's excitedly examined the gambling girl from top to bottom, inside and out. He was so excited that bubbles seemed to be coming out of his nose. This point was well understood by Tonpa. In fact, the prisoners had long predicted Leorio's actions. They knew that someone like Leorio's, with his preferences, would definitely choose the option most advantageous to himself. So, no matter what, he couldn't win against a professional gambler like the gambling girl. Obviously, the gambling girl also thought the same. With full confidence, she asked Leorio's to propose a bet. It was then that Leorio's remembered to check the scoreboard. The prisoners had already accumulated 90 hours, while his side only had 10 hours left. What should he bet on? Leorio's suddenly had an idea. He suggested to the gambling girl that they bet on rock paper scissors. Leorio's was quite confident in his rock paper scissors skills. The gambling girl didn't hesitate at all and bet 80 hours that she would win at rock paper scissors. However, this bet made Leorio's nervous. Why did she specifically mention 80 hours when 10 hours would have sufficed? Leorio's was really starting to panic. In reality, this was a maze deliberately created by the gambling girl. Indeed, this move made Leorio's hesitate once again. Kurapika explained to everyone that rock paper scissors was a very profound psychological game. Although statistically, the probability of losing at rock paper scissors was only 1/3, it was different if the opponent could read your thoughts. If one was psychologically suppressed by the opponent, the chances of guessing the outcome of rock paper scissors would dramatically increase. Therefore, for the simple-minded Leorio's, rock paper scissors was actually not an advantageous game. Just as the rock paper scissors game was about to begin, the gambling girl started a psychological offensive. She directly told Leorio's that she already knew what he was going to choose because she could read minds. Although Leorio's didn't believe it verbally, he was already shaken inside. He kept speculating in his mind whether the gambling girl could really read minds. However, this caused Leorio's mental strength to be quite scattered. When the gambling girl urged him to start playing rock paper scissors, even Kurapika, who was watching from the sidelines, could tell that Leorio's would definitely choose rock. Sure enough, Leorio's did not disappoint everyone. Fortunately, this time the gambling girl also chose rock. Gon was very curious as to why Kurapika could predict that Leorio's would definitely choose rock. Kurapika explained that when people were nervous, they would unconsciously clench their fists. And the gambling girl had deliberately shaken Leorio's emotions just now, causing him to subconsciously choose rock. At this moment, on the platform, Leorio suddenly realized something was wrong. He accused the gambling girl of being a fraud. If she really could read minds, shouldn't she have chosen paper just now? Unexpectedly, the gambling girl smiled and replied that she did it on purpose because drawing was to buy time, which was also important for them as prisoners. Therefore, she might continue to choose a draw. But it's really not working like this after all, so it's better to determine a winner or loser next. At this moment, Leorio's was completely dumbfounded. He felt that his fate was already in the hands of the gambling girl. And the more his mentality collapsed and his emotions became chaotic, the more the gambling girl could take advantage of it. Based on Kurapika's understanding of psychology, he thought that Leorio's would probably throw a rock in the next round. Or if not, as long as the gambling girl kept throwing paper, she would definitely not lose. Leorio's was immersed in hesitation and fear, when suddenly Gon shouted at him from behind, telling him to throw scissors in the next round and he would definitely win. Gon's words made Leorio's a little confused. Why would he win just by throwing scissors? But the gambling girl wasn't afraid at all and confidently said to Leorio's, "If you want to throw scissors, go ahead." In the end, Leorio's was once again caught in a dilemma. What would the gambling girl throw? Just when Leorio's was restless, the gambling girl urged him to start the game quickly. So Leorio's didn't have time to think and shouted rock in the end. And this time, the gambling girl threw paper. The outcome was clear. Now Gon and the others, as well as the prisoners, have 2 wins and 2 losses. But the 60 hours they had left suddenly decreased by 50 hours. The last one to appear is Killua, corresponding to a guy with blonde hair from the prisoner group. It is not known how powerful he is for now, but judging from the prisoner's attitude towards him, it feels like this guy is quite difficult to deal with. Machtani, with a big mouth, wanted to provoke the blonde guy, but he was punched into the wall by him. And when the blonde guy took off his cloak, Leorio shouted to Killua to stop fighting and just surrender. Because this blonde man is the famous dismemberment expert Johnny, the most vicious murderer in Sabast. 146 innocent people died in his hands. This guy's hand strength is enough to crush a person's skull. So it's basically suicide for Killua to fight him. But Killua still went forward without hesitation. He asked Johnny what the result of this match would be. Johnny found it funny and said he wouldn't show any contempt because it would be a one-sided massacre. Your body will soon be torn apart. But then, when Killua passed by Johnny like a ghost, Johnny felt a chill in his chest. When he looked down, he found an extra bullet hole in his chest. Standing behind him, Killua was dragging a beating heart in his hand. Johnny couldn't believe it. Killua and the others won 5 rounds out of 3 and won this contemptuous victory. And Killua's ruthless move left a deep impression on Leorio's, Kurapika, and the others. Gon and the others then stepped onto the duel stage. In the room that appeared next to them, the door automatically locked as soon as they entered. The countdown showed that there were still 50 hours left because they just lost 50 hours. Now they can only be locked in here waiting for the time to run out. At this time, Kurapika took the opportunity to ask Killua how he was able to instantly take the opponent's heart. Killua then demonstrated his dragon claw technique. Killua said that he is still too inexperienced in removing people's hearts. His father would not leave a drop of blood when removing people's hearts. That is the true dragon claw technique. Although Killua won the last round decisively, because Leorio's lost 50 hours to the prisoners, everyone had to be locked in the room for 50 hours before they could leave. Tongba started to blame Leorio's because he was the one who lost the time just now. Leorio's knew he was at fault, but in the end, he couldn't help but be provoked by Tongba's mockery. He accused Tongba of surrendering as soon as he entered the field, but Tongba said that although he surrendered, he didn't waste any time. Now they only have this little time left, and they definitely won't be able to complete the test. When they were arguing, Killua taught Gon how to skateboard. Children are truly innocent and naive. They still had 40 hours before they could leave. Gon and Killua were enjoying this leisurely time. They were focused on playing with a fishing rod. Gon was a fishing expert and he accurately hooked the fish hook into Tongba's water cup. Killua was very curious and wanted to try it too, but he not only failed to cast the hook in the right place, but also got his fishing hook caught on Leorio's pants. This made Leorio's already frustrated mood even worse. Seeing Leorio's furious expression, Tongba laughed cunningly, making Leorio's feel that Tongba had some secret that he didn't want to reveal. Gon and Killua were having a great time playing, fighting, practicing, eating, and sleeping. Leorio's, on the other hand, was silently practicing and recovering his state. Kurapika was reading one book after another, while Tongba was idle all the time. There was only 1 hour left and they would be able to go out. Everyone put on their clothes and stood at the door, waiting to rush out as soon as the door opened. Finally, the door opened and they went through a series of crazy running and passed through a series of trap-filled passages. In short, after going through a lot of difficulties and obstacles, they arrived at a door when there was still over an hour left until the end of the test. But after going through a series of twists and turns and entering that door, they found that there were 2 more doors inside. One door had a cross marked on it, and the other door had a circle marked on it. These 2 doors led to 2 different paths. The first one was the difficult route that would take at least 4 to 5 hours, but could accommodate 5 people. The other one was the easy route that only took 3 minutes, but could only accommodate 3 people. Now, time didn't allow them to choose the difficult route. Looking at the various weapons around them, was this forcing them to fight each other? At this moment, Leorio's told everyone that no matter what, he must be one of the 3 people. This statement instantly made Tongba feel uncomfortable. He walked over to Leorio's and said that if it wasn't for the 50 hours wasted by him, everyone could have walked the long route without any harm. So in this situation, shouldn't he take the initiative to take responsibility? Although Leorio's was a bit speechless about this, he clearly didn't intend to do so. And compared to Leorio's choice, Gon wanted to choose the difficult route, even if there was only a glimmer of hope. He didn't want to fight among themselves. Just as everyone was hesitating, Tongba suddenly attacked Leorio's. He had secretly taken an axe from the wall. So Leorio's had to take a weapon from the wall as well and stand with Tongba. The battle between the 2 of them made the whole room a mess. Seeing this scene, Killua became a bit excited and his hands turned into claws that could dig out hearts. The strangest thing was Gon, who also picked up a weapon. Was he going to join the fight? Time passed bit by bit, and there was only 1 minute left until the end of the test. Obviously, no one else would come. But Hisoka closed his eyes and didn't dare to be careless. He had already smelled a familiar smell. Sure enough, the next second, a door opened. Gon, covered in bruises, Killua, and Kurapika walked out of the door. Could it be that they had gone through a fight in the end? But unexpectedly, right after that, Leorio's and Tongba squeezed out of the door, fighting over it, just a few seconds before the end of the test. They arrived at the finish line. This was simply unbelievable. It turned out that all of this was Gon's brilliant idea. When Leorio's and Tongba were fighting, he discovered that the surrounding walls were not strong. So in order to give everyone a chance to pass the test, he led everyone into the difficult path. Then everyone worked together to break down the walls. Finally, they made a big hole in the wall and they went straight from the difficult route to the easy route. It was because of Gon's outstanding performance that everyone saw the dawn of victory. On the other side, Aunt Mito and Grandma at home received a letter from Gon. In the letter, he talked about his experiences during this period. From the letter, they could feel Gon's excitement and knew that he had made several good friends. Both of them felt gratified. Gon will definitely become a qualified hunter. Only 24 candidates passed the third round. Uncle Lippo told everyone that there are still 2 fierce battles waiting for them. The 4th round will take place on the nearby Zebel Island. Lippo brought a small box for everyone to draw lots to determine the hunters and the hunted. The candidates need to draw lots according to the order of escaping from the tower. The first one to appear is Hisoka. The second one is the weird nerve man with nails all over his body. The drawing of lots quickly ended. Everyone calmly uncovered the paper on the back of the lead. Each person's sign had a number printed on it. This number is the candidate's prey number. They need to find the candidate with the same number as the one on their sign and take their number card. There are no restrictions on methods during the exam. In short, the number cards on oneself and the target represent 3 points, while the number cards of other non-target prey represent 1 point. Candidates must collect 6 points to pass. At this time, Gon looked at the number 44 in his hand and was a little stunned. That's Hisoka's number. Meanwhile, the candidates took a small boat to the destination, Zebel Island. The beautiful tour guide, Kara, warmly greeted everyone, but she found that the candidates completely ignored him. Now everyone is waiting in battle formation. In order to hide their number cards, everyone concealed them. Leorios felt a little guilty about this and told Kurapika that if his target is him, he will definitely not show mercy. Kurapika directly said that it is natural because he will also handle it officially. As a result, Leorios was scared. Your target won't really be me, right? Killua and Gon, on the other hand, were bold. They kept their name cards on them. The two of them showed each other the number cards they drew. Killua found that Gon drew number 44 and was stunned. Isn't that Hisoka's number? But Killua drew number 199, and neither of them had any impression of this number. It must be a nameless small fry. But Hisoka is the most powerful among these candidates. Killua not only worried about Gon but also wanted to comfort him. However, Gon said that although he was nervous and scared, he was not hopeless. If this were a normal battle, he would definitely not be able to defeat Hisoka. But this is just about grabbing number cards. Maybe he can think of a good way. Killua left and made a promise with Gon to survive. Finally, they arrived at Zebel Island. The candidates disembarked in the order of the draw. The earlier they disembarked, the more opportunities they had to occupy advantageous terrain. Gon hid in a tree and thought about how to get the card from Hisoka. He will definitely have a direct confrontation with Hisoka, and the situation will be completely one-sided. Just as Gon was thinking about how to take advantage of the situation and deal with Hisoka, he suddenly noticed 2 people hiding in the grass under the tree. They were clearly in a hunter and prey relationship. The red-haired brother was exploring the path ahead, and not far behind him, the boy with the pink hat was shooting arrows. It seemed like he was going to take the red-haired brother's life. But when the boy with the pink hat shot an arrow, the red-haired brother seemed to have a telepathic sense and dodged to the side. Although his arm was cut, his life was saved. However, he didn't expect that the arrowhead of the boy with the pink hat was coated with a fast-acting anesthetic. As a result, the boy with the pink hat easily took the number card from the red-haired brother. Gon was stunned watching from the tree. The boy with the pink hat's actions were so smooth and natural. This gave Gon inspiration. He couldn't help but think that he probably only had this method to use. Gon immediately started special training. He put several fruits on a tree stump and practiced attacking with a fishing rod. Every time, he accurately hooked the apple. However, Hisoka was a moving target, so Gon hung the apple on a tree and practiced by shaking it. After practicing for half a day, Gon still felt something was off. Hisoka's movements were unpredictable. How could he improve his accuracy in attacking moving targets? So Gon thought of attacking birds. This time, he encountered difficulties. The birds were too fast and agile, and Gon couldn't catch them at all. Gon practiced for a whole day and realized that he had made little progress. Early the next morning, Gon washed his face and continued practicing. Despite countless attempts, he still couldn't succeed. However, compared to Gon, these birds were able to accurately catch fish jumping out of the water every time. Gon suddenly had an idea. He imitated the hunting techniques of birds and only cast his line at the moment the birds were about to catch fish. This time, he successfully caught his first bird. Gon was overjoyed. Meanwhile, in the jungle behind Gon, a little black brother had been watching him for a day and night. He applauded Gon's discovery, but he didn't hesitate to hunt Gon. However, Gon was unaware that someone was watching him. He was completely immersed in his own joy of success. In order to catch this bird, Gon's hands were covered in blisters, but he was still excited, thinking about how to find Hisoka. Just as Gon was thinking, a group of butterflies flew over. These butterflies were very bold and kept flying around Gon, refusing to leave. Gon then realized that it was because of the bloody smell on his hands. At this moment, Gon suddenly thought of Hisoka, who also had a wound on his shoulder. Gon immediately caught a few butterflies and tied them with a rope, using them to lead the way and hoping to find Hisoka's whereabouts. However, things didn't go well. Gon's butterflies flew to the red-haired man from before. But Gon wasn't discouraged. After bandaging the red-haired man's wound, he set off again to find Hisoka. At this time, a group of butterflies also surrounded Hisoka. He was talking on the phone with the guy with nails all over his body. One of them wasn't in a hurry to find prey, while the other didn't want to find prey at all. For strong people, it was enough to randomly find a few people to attack when the test was about to end. While the guy with nails was talking to Hisoka on the phone, a hunter was aiming a gun at him. After numerous failures, Gon finally succeeded in finding Hisoka's location. He found Hisoka sitting under a big tree, enjoying the shade. Gon was sweating profusely and extremely nervous. He hid in the grass, waiting for Hisoka's next move. He wanted to attack Hisoka at the moment just like catching a bird. Meanwhile, Leorio's was wandering around in the forest. When he wanted to lean against a big tree to rest, he heard a noise behind him. Leorio's immediately felt a chill and shouted, "Who's there?" Then, Tongpa appeared. Leorio's quickly took out his knife and assumed a fighting stance. Tongpa was startled and hurriedly took out the card he drew earlier. It was number 191. Leorio's then took out his own card, which was number 246. Leorio's had no idea who number 246 was, but Tongpa happened to know. The person's name was Ponzu. Tongpa suddenly felt his own value. After all, he knew everything about Ponzu's appearance, weapon skills, and special abilities. So he confidently negotiated with Leorio's to exchange conditions. It turned out that Tongpa had eaten some fruit earlier and had a stomachache. He wanted Leorio's, a doctor, to give him some medicine. Leorio's agreed to Tongpa's condition, and Tongpa drew Ponzu's face on the ground, telling Leorio's about Ponzu's characteristics. Ponzu liked to set traps and wait for prey to fall into them. So as long as they engaged in close combat with Ponzu, they would definitely win. Tongpa also reminded Leorio's to pay attention to the wind direction because Ponzu was also skilled in using drugs. As he was speaking, Tongpa started trembling and couldn't take it anymore. Leorio's had no choice but to quickly find medicine for him from the box. However, as soon as he opened the box, someone suddenly jumped out from behind and attacked him. It was Monkey Brother, the monkey trainer. He didn't use lethal force and took advantage of Leorio's confusion, causing things to fly everywhere. He snatched Leorio's number plate, and at the same time, Tongpa's stomachache disappeared. It turned out that Tongpa had been pretending all along, just to trick Leorio's into opening the medicine box and revealing the number plate. This way, he could easily grab what he needed without any trouble. Tongba's target was indeed Leorio's. However, he had exchanged number plates with Monkey Brother. Monkey Brother and Tongba looked at Leorios and laughed heartily. They never expected such a simple trap to work. Leorios was furious and chased after Tongba with all his might. But despite Leorio's efforts, Tongba, despite being fat, was surprisingly agile and Leorios couldn't catch up to him. However, just as Tongba was laughing and running happily, Kurapika appeared in front of him. Kurapika casually extended his leg and tripped Tongba to the ground. He did this because he thought Leorios was too foolish and wanted to help him. So, on a platform in the forest, Tongba, with a swollen face and tight hands, sat on a mound of dirt. He needed to reflect on his mistakes. Later, Leorios and Kurapika teamed up and brought Monkey Brother to Tongba's side. Kurapika and Leorios not only found Leorio's number plate but also obtained number plates 16 and 118. In fact, Kurapika's target was Tongba, which is why he cooperated with Leorios to deal with him. So now Kurapika has already cleared the game, while Leorios is still 2 points away. They still need to find Ponzu and get her number plate. The sun was almost setting, and Gon was still hiding in the bushes, observing Hisoka. Suddenly, Hisoka seemed to sense something and slowly walked towards Gon's direction. Gon became extremely nervous. Should he make a move or not? Suddenly, in the grass in front of Gon, a bearded man stood up. It turned out that there were more people hiding besides Gon. The bearded man took out a long spear and started fighting Hisoka. But Hisoka didn't fight back, he just elegantly dodged the attacks. This surprised Gon because he thought he was about to encounter Hisoka and have a chance to attack. Now the bearded man was already exhausted, and Hisoka only needed to buy time. The bearded man would end up killing himself. Because he realized that the bearded man had been seriously injured by someone else. But the bearded man didn't believe it and swung his spear towards Hisoka. Unexpectedly, a bunch of nen needles suddenly flew towards him, pinning the bearded man down. It turned out that the bearded man was the target of Gitarakers. Gitarakers not only obtained the number plate he needed but also gave the extra number plates to Hisoka. He killed the person who had aimed at him with a sniper rifle. Gitarakers said as he pulled out the nen needles from his head. As Gitarakers removed the nen needles from his face, his appearance began to change. He transformed from an extremely ugly middle-aged man into a fair and beautiful Illumi. Illumi dug a hole and buried himself in it. He said he wanted to take a nap and told Hisoka to do his best. This scene left Gon stunned. The sky had already turned dark, and those who hadn't found their targets were still wandering in the forest. Hisoka finally stood up and decided to look for some prey. Gon followed closely behind him and started to act. But Hisoka randomly found Leorios and Kurapika as his prey. Seeing his companions in danger, Gon became even more nervous. However, he could only stay on the sidelines and follow Hisoka closely. Gon closely followed behind Hisoka, running after him. He was torn between whether he should make a move or not when Hisoka attacked. It was the best opportunity for him to get Hisoka's number plate. But if he only thought about himself, it would likely put Kurapika and Leorios in danger. What should he do? Gon couldn't make up his mind and could only act on the situation. At this time, Kurapika and Leorios still had no idea that danger was approaching. They were still discussing how to find Ponza's number plate. Suddenly, they looked up and saw Hisoka waiting for them ahead. Hisoka played with a poker card and looked at them with a heroic gaze. He calmly told Kurapika and Leorios that he was still 2 points away from 6 points. So as long as they handed over their number plates, he would let them go. Upon hearing this, Leorios instantly became furious and wanted to rush over. Fortunately, Kurapika accurately caught the hidden meaning in Hisoka's words. That was, Hisoka was actually only 2 points away from 6 points. And Leorios and Kurapika were clearly not Hisoka's targets. So, should they hand over their own number cards or try to fight for them? Currently, Kurapika and Leorios each had 4 number cards, one of which was irrelevant. Kurapika planned to give this card to Hisoka, so that Hisoka would only be 1 point away from completing the task. But if Hisoka still intended to snatch another card, then they would have to resort to force. Kurapika and Leorios revealed their weapons, determined to bite Hisoka even if they couldn't win. However, in this tense atmosphere, Hisoka suddenly smiled. It seemed as if he felt that the prey he had always been interested in had suddenly grown. This growth made him happy and made him feel that he had not made a mistake by letting them go before. Hisoka didn't want to pick the fruit that was still ripening. Therefore, he happily accepted Kurapika's suggestion and took the 1-point number card, then let Kurapika and Leorio leave. Gon anxiously hid behind a tree, sweating profusely. This result could be considered very lucky. However, suddenly Gon realized that Hisoka actually had the ability to obtain number cards without shedding blood. If Hisoka encountered another opponent who willingly handed over their number card, then Gon would likely never be able to snatch Hisoka's number card. This might be his only chance. Just as Gon was feeling a bit confused, Hisoka suddenly emitted a strange and powerful aura. This power was awe-inspiring and made Gon feel a chill down his spine. As a result, Gon immediately wanted to leave instead of fighting Hisoka. At this moment, Hisoka was in a state of extreme excitement and disappointment. Because he suppressed his killing intent and didn't attack Kurapika and Leorio's, he now urgently wanted to find a target. However, Hisoka also knew that his killing intent was too strong right now and needed to be suppressed, otherwise his prey would not appear before him. So, after a night of settling down, Hisoka finally successfully suppressed his killing intent. But now, Hisoka looked even more dangerous. He walked with his hands hanging down, like a zombie, aimlessly moving forward, planning to kill anyone he saw. On the side, Gon saw the scene and immediately understood Hisoka's thoughts. He planned to go around and find Hisoka's prey before him. After some investigation, Gon finally saw an unlucky guy. He chose to choose a favorable location and planned to ambush Hisoka there and wait for him to make a move. Now, all Gon needed to do was to calm his mind and reduce his presence to the lowest level, otherwise Hisoka would definitely notice when he made a move. So, when Hisoka saw the unlucky guy, he immediately rushed towards him. But just as Hisoka and the unlucky guy were about to clash, Gon's fishing hook flew out and accurately hooked the number card on Hisoka's chest, then quickly retracted. After discovering this, Hisoka could only watch as his card was taken away. A red light flashed and Hisoka quickly knocked down the unlucky guy with playing cards. He then turned around and saw Gon. At this moment, he didn't make any unnecessary movements, just looked at Gon as he quickly fled the scene. Gon ran happily, he finally got Hisoka's number card and successfully completed the task. But suddenly, his steps became slower and slower. Gon realized that he couldn't control his legs anymore. Finally, Gon fell to the ground. The black guy who had been hiding in the dark came out of the forest. It turned out that he had poisoned Gon when he wasn't paying attention. And now, the black guy leisurely searched Gon's body and found all the number cards. He obtained 2 number cards at once, a really good harvest. The black guy wanted Gon to remember this lesson. Praying mantis catches the cicada, but the oriole is behind. These days, he had thousands of opportunities to kill Gon. At this moment, Gon could only watch as the black guy left with satisfaction. But unexpectedly, not long after, the black guy suddenly appeared in front of Gon, covered in blood. Then, Hisoka walked over. He attached a new number card to his chest, which was the number card of the black guy. Hisoka was very satisfied with Gon's operation of stealing his number card just now. He returned his own number card and the number card of Gon to him, then turned to leave. But this made Gon feel a great sense of shame. Hisoka estimated that the poison in Gon's body would last for several days, and Gon probably wouldn't be able to get up in the short term. As a result, Gon struggled to stand up from behind. He held the number card with the number 44. And rushed towards Hisoka with anger. Although he really hoped to pass this test smoothly, he didn't want to be humiliated by Hisoka. However, Hisoka completely disagreed. He punched Gon and then left with a triumphant look. Before leaving, Hisoka left a message for Gon, saying that he should come back and talk after he can throw such a punch. Gon's heart really felt an unprecedented humiliation. Killua was walking aimlessly in the forest. He clearly felt someone following him from behind. The person who had been following Killua, Imori, was very patient and planned to lurk behind Killua quietly, waiting for him to become tired or relaxed before making a move. But Killua was annoyed by being followed. "Since you won't come out, then I'll come to you." And as Killua slowly approached him, Imori trembled with fear and even wanted to turn around and run away, to escape from this terrifying place. But he didn't dare to run because Imori had 2 older brothers behind him. If his 2 older brothers found out that he fled at the critical moment, they would definitely scold him to death. Fear what comes, come what may. Imori's brothers indeed appeared. Amori and Umori stood behind Imori, looking at his pathetic appearance. Amori and Umori immediately greeted him warmly. Imori had no choice but to walk towards Killua with a fierce look on his face. Now that he had his brothers backing him up, he had the courage to directly ask Killua for the number plate. Killua naturally didn't fall for it. So Imori, who was fierce and lustful, lifted his foot and kicked Killua away. But Killua immediately flipped over and got up. He took out a number plate with the number 198 from his pocket. It turned out that while Imori was kicking him, Killua had secretly taken Imori's number plate. Unfortunately, it was number 198, and Killua needed number 199. Is it on your brothers? At this moment, seeing that Killua was still calm and composed, Imori and Umori finally became serious. They formed a triangular formation with Imori and surrounded Killua in the middle. However, the gap in strength between them and Killua was too great. With just one flash, Killua easily turned to the back of Umori, kicked him to the ground, and used his blade-like hand to press against Umori's neck. In this way, Killua obtained the number plates of Imori and Umori. He kept number 199 and threw away numbers 198 and 197. He also played a trick on Hanzo, who had been secretly lurking. It has been exactly 6 days. The fourth round of the test will end in 1 day, and Leorio still hasn't accumulated enough 6 points. He has no idea where Ponzu is now. Leorio's, feeling a bit desperate, told Kurapika that those who completed the task in advance are probably already waiting at the finish line. Kurapika said it's impossible. The difficulty of the fourth test lies in the fact that until the last moment, no one dares to say that they have cleared it. Because there may be someone who will send their number plate to you. So as long as the test is not over, you will always be in a state of battle. However, Kurapika still decided to go to the vicinity of the finish line with Leorio's to take a look. If they happen to meet Ponzu, wouldn't that be lucky? But unexpectedly, in the dense forest near the finish line, Kurapika and Leorio's didn't see any other examinees or Ponzu. Instead, they met Gon. Now Gon and Kurapika have collected number plates worth 6 points each, while Leorio's has not succeeded yet. Later, at Gon's inquiry, Leorio's also told Gon about Ponzu's situation. But Gon didn't see any girls along the way. Gon had to ask Leorio's if there were any characteristics of Ponzu, such as being a girl or wearing some perfume that he could smell and find her. As a result, Kurapika suddenly thought that Ponzu might not have the smell of perfume on her, but she must have the smell of medicine. This girl is good at using medicine. So following the scent of medicine to find Ponzu should be correct. Gon then used his super-sensitive dog nose. He stood in a high place and distinguished the wind blowing from all directions, capturing any unusual scent in the wind. Because that could be the key to finding Ponzu. Gon, along with Kurapika and Leorio's, traveled through the forest, crossed the grassland, and passed the stream, until the sunset was about to set. This day was also coming to an end, and Gon finally stopped. In front of them was a dark cave. Is Ponzu inside? Leorio's decided to explore the cave himself. After all, it was his own business, and he wouldn't let Gon and Kurapika take risks for him. Leorio's wanted Gon and Kurapika to leave, but for Gon and Kurapika, since they were a team, they couldn't abandon their teammates. This made Leorio's even suggest leaving the team, but in the end, he agreed. If he couldn't come out after 30 minutes, Gon and Kurapika would go to rescue him. Leorio's held a wooden stick and, after nervously confirming that there were no traps, lit a lighter and walked into the dark cave. But he didn't expect the cave to be very deep. In order not to alert the enemy, Leorio's extinguished the only lighter that could give him courage. He groped his way into the depths of the cave. Finally, he came to the end of the cave. There was a flickering firelight. Leorio saw a pale-faced man sitting against the cave wall in the firelight. Leorio's remembered that the man's name was Bourbon, and in the shadow of the firelight, Ponzu suddenly appeared. She asked Leorio's if he had come to find her. Leorio's immediately entered a fighting state. He knew that Ponzu was very good at using drugs and could possibly kill without a trace. But at this moment, Ponzu told Leorio's that it was all useless. Even if the two of them fought in the cave, it would be useless. Leorio's didn't understand, he just wanted to defeat Ponzu and get the number plate to pass the test smoothly. But Ponzu said that even if Leorio's won, he couldn't escape from this cave. This made Leorio's very curious. What are you talking about? Gon and Kurapika waited left and right, but Leorio's didn't come out. Seeing that 30 minutes had passed, they wondered if Leorio's was in danger. Gon and Kurapika were planning to go into the cave to take a look when they heard Leorio's shout from inside the cave. He told Gon and Kurapika not to come in. Gon and Kurapika would definitely not listen. If they hadn't heard Leorio's shout, it would have been better. But hearing Leorio's shouting not to let them in, Gon and Kurapika immediately rushed into the cave at full speed. Soon they ran to the end of the cave. In the light of the fire, they saw Leorio's, who was covered in injuries, lying on the ground trembling. There were snake bodies scattered on the ground, already cut into pieces. Ponzu was still sitting in place unharmed. Gon and Kurapika quickly ran over to check Leorio's injuries. He was bitten by snakes all over his body. These snakes on the ground are venomous snakes. Gon immediately squatted down to help Leorio's suck out the venom. Fortunately, Leorio's was a doctor, and he should have some first aid supplies in his medical kit. Gon and Kurapika quickly bandaged Leorio's wounds and were about to take him away, but at this time, countless venomous snakes rushed out of the entrance. Gon and the others couldn't move forward at all. It turned out that these snakes were the prohibition set by Bourbon before he died. As long as Ponzu wanted to leave, she would be bitten to death by the snakes. And now facing so many snakes, how could they escape? At this time, Ponzu confessed voluntarily. It was her who killed Bourbon. But how he died is a trade secret. Kurapika couldn't help but take a look at this weak girl. He then walked into Bourbon to carefully examine his condition. Unexpectedly, as soon as he approached, a group of snakes suddenly surrounded him, as if protecting Bourbon. Kurapika was startled, but he also saw the wounds on Bourbon's body clearly. They looked like they were caused by venomous bees. Ponzu confirmed Kurapika's judgment. She said that Bourbon was her target. She had been following Bourbon all the time and watched Bourbon enter this cave. Therefore, at the entrance of the cave, she released a lot of hypnotic gas. By the time Bourbon entered the cave, she was already asleep. Ponzu wanted to check the situation of Bourbon, but she didn't expect snakes to emerge from all directions. Frightened, Ponzu screamed and quickly ran. Her scream happened to alert the bees that had been hiding in her hat all along. So these bees swarmed and attacked, covering the sleeping Bourbon. Then the problem came. Even if Bourbon died, the snake formation still existed. No one who entered the cave could escape. Ponzu told Kurapika and Gon that they can only wait for the members of the committee to find them now. The positioning system is inside the number plates on their chests. After the test is over, if there are still candidates who have not returned to the starting point, the members of the committee will come out to search for them. But Leorio's injuries are urgent and there is no time to wait for them. Kurapika knows very well that there should be a way to save Leorio's. And at this moment, Gon suddenly took action. He walked directly towards Bourbon and hesitated for a moment before reaching out to the body. The venomous snakes immediately rushed towards Gon without mercy. Soon, his whole body was surrounded by venomous snakes. Kurapika and Ponzu were dumbfounded by this scene. But Gon still persisted. He kept searching on Bourbon's body. Finally, he found the antidote he wanted. Gon, who was bitten all over by the venomous snakes, threw the antidote to Kurapika and then fell to the ground himself. Gon's actions really impressed Ponzu. He endured the bites of the venomous snakes and searched for a possible antidote for his friend. This child is truly loyal. Afterwards, Kurapika injected the antidote to Leorio's and Gon. Gon finally regained consciousness from his coma. But the first thing he did when he woke up was to use Bourbon's number plate to exchange for Ponzu's hypnosis gas. This made Ponzu very curious. It turned out that Gon wanted to use the hypnosis gas in the cave to put all the snakes to sleep and then lead everyone out. But this idea immediately made Ponzu feel unreliable. The hypnosis gas would take at least 5 minutes to take effect, and the cave is so long. So how could it be possible? But Gon told Ponzu that he can hold his breath for 9 minutes and 44 seconds. At this time, Ponzu was still a bit skeptical, but then Kurapika reminded her, and she finally chose to believe in Gon. So Ponzu immediately released the hypnosis gas, and after taking a deep breath, Gon successfully led everyone out of the cave by counting the time. Before leaving, Gon left Bourbon's number plate to Ponzu and took Ponzu's number plate. With this number plate, Leorio's can score 6 points. It can only be said that Leorio's was really lucky to meet Gon and Kurapika. The fourth test finally ended, and all the candidates who completed the test returned to the starting point. Originally, there were more than 20 people, but now there are only 9 people left, and 6 of them are newcomers. This made Chairman Netero very happy, as it has been a long time since such a situation occurred. But what should the final test assess? Menchi and others were very curious, and Chairman Netero also played coy. He decided to have a face-to-face conversation with each candidate first. The first one to be interviewed was Hisoka. Chairman Netero first asked him why he wanted to become a hunter. Hisoka replied that killing people is not illegal for hunters. So the chairman asked him who he cares most about among all the candidates. Hisoka immediately mentioned Killua's name, although he also cares about Gon. And finally, Chairman Netero asked Hisoka who he least wants to fight among the candidates. Hisoka answered that it is Gon. Hisoka bought 3 and got 1 free, and he gave the chairman an answer. That is, among all the hunters, the opponent he most wants to fight is Chairman Netero. However, the chairman scratched his head and didn't respond to it. Hisoka had to leave first. It seems that Hisoka is still too confident. After talking to each candidate, Chairman Netero could see that Hisoka's popularity was quite high. His name was mentioned by many people, whether it was the person they cared most about or the person they least wanted to fight. It can be seen that his strength is almost universally recognized. After finishing the interviews, Chairman Netero returned to his office humming a tune. Menchi and others looked at him with expectant eyes, and when they saw the paper in Chairman Netero's hand, they almost couldn't believe their eyes. "Chairman, are you really going to do this? Are you sure?" Chairman Netero nodded confidently. No one knew what brilliant idea he had come up with. The airship flew in the sunset. Gon and Kurapika were having a heart-to-heart talk. Kurapika noticed that Gon had been acting strange since the end of the 4th test. He seemed burdened with something. Gon finally revealed his encounter with Hisoka. He had never defeated Hisoka, but Hisoka willingly handed over his number plate to him. And he said that he didn't want it anymore. Hearing this, Gon burst into tears. He felt a great sense of shame and realized how small his power was. Gon felt lonely and helpless. That's why he went to find Kurapika and Leorio's in the end. They finally arrived at the location of the final test. Chairman Netero brought out a big board and unveiled it. Everyone thought it was a one-on-one elimination match lineup. But Chairman Netero told them that whoever won one battle would become a hunter. The losers would move up until there was only one person left. In other words, the highest position on the schedule was not the only winner, but the only loser. Gon's opponent was Hanzo, while Kurapika's opponent was Hisoka. The examinees stared at the schedule for a long time and finally understood that some people had far more opportunities than others. For example, Gon and Killua, who entered the competition in the first round, had up to 5 chances. As long as they won one of the 5 matches, they could become hunters. This rule doesn't seem fair at all. But Chairman Netero said that he arranged the order of appearance based on everyone's performance in the previous tests. The better they performed in the previous tests, the more opportunities they would have in the final match. Killua was a bit dissatisfied and asked if Chairman Netero could tell them the criteria for evaluation. Chairman Netero said that the evaluation mainly consisted of 3 factors. The first was physical ability, which mainly referred to agility, flexibility, endurance, and the ability to withstand pain. The second was mental ability, which mainly referred to endurance, flexibility, judgment, and creativity. The third was impression quality, in other words, an impression score. Upon hearing this, Killua was really unhappy. Does this mean that when these 3 factors are combined, Gon is stronger than him? At this point, Chairman Netero began to explain the rules of the test. In the competition, any weapon or means could be used, but only when the opponent surrendered could it be considered a victory. However, killing during the battle would immediately disqualify the participant. The first match was about to begin. Hanzo and Gon were the first to compete. Referee Glasses Guy saw Hanzo and thought he looked familiar. Hanzo also recognized Glasses Guy. He was the examiner who had been with him during the 4th test. But upon hearing this, Gon was completely confused. Was there an examiner with him at that time? Hanzo explained that there was an examiner with all the examinees at that time, supervising them at all times. Gon was even more bewildered. He hadn't noticed that there was someone with him the whole time. Similarly shocked were Leorio's and Kurapika. At this point, Killua, who was watching from the side, became even more frustrated. He also realized that Gon had an advantage. On the arena, Hanzo looked at the young boy in front of him. Although he seemed to have no attacking power, Hanzo could see from his eyes that Gon was a very tough opponent. Even if he was beaten all over, he wouldn't easily give up. He was a tricky opponent. After the match started, Gon initially tried to use his speed advantage to create distance from Hanzo. But as soon as he ran in the opposite direction of Hanzo, Hanzo instantly caught up with him. With just one kick, he knocked Gon down. Gon felt dizzy and felt like his soul was about to leave his body. Hanzo also had a headache. If it were a normal match, he would have easily won. But in this competition, the opponent had to surrender. So if he simply knocked Gon unconscious, he would have to wake him up. Seeing Gon in such a weak state, Hanzo immediately asked if he surrendered. However, as soon as Gon regained consciousness, he clenched his teeth and vowed not to surrender. Hanzo had no choice but to slap Gon again. Just as Gon was starting to recover a bit, he once again lost his bearings. Hanzo would ask a question and then hit him. Ask a question, kick him. Gon was like a puppet, completely at Hanzo's mercy. His whole body was soft, except for his mouth, which remained stubborn. He stubbornly refused to surrender, even if he was beaten black and blue. Leorio's and Kurapika, who were watching the match, were extremely anxious. Leorio's was eager for Gon to surrender and wanted to help, while Kurapika's eyes were turning red with anger. However, the spectators were extremely anxious. The chairman, Netero, who had set up this bizarre rule, remained calm. He seemed to have known the outcome in advance, as Gon had been humiliated for 3 hours unilaterally. Gon finally stopped coughing up blood, probably because he had no more blood left to cough up. Leorio's couldn't bear to watch anymore. He was excited and wanted to replace Gon in the fight and challenge Hanzo himself, but the examiners immediately stopped him. At this moment, Gon got up from the ground again and told Hanzo that he could still continue. So Hanzo became even more ruthless and directly broke Gon's left hand. Leorio's, who was watching the match, could no longer control his anger and told Kurapika not to stop him, as he wanted to fight Hanzo himself. However, Kurapika was also on the verge of exploding. Only Killua felt a little unwilling, as he believed that he would not have ended up like this if he had been the one fighting. Hanzo saw Gon trembling on the ground and couldn't help but want to completely crush his last bit of confidence. He stood on one hand and slowly loosened his fingers, indicating that he had received ninja training since he was a child and had already killed people when he was as young as Gon. Therefore, it was impossible for Gon to win. He advised Gon to give up and surrender early. Before he could finish speaking, Gon kicked him and sent him flying. This kick excited both Kurapika and Leo, but it also made Hanzo serious again. He pulled out a sharp knife from his sleeve and said that if Gon didn't surrender, he would cut off his foot. Gon didn't like this and told Hanzo that he didn't want him to cut off his foot, but he also didn't want to admit defeat. So he suggested finding another way to determine the winner. Everyone present laughed. They thought Gon really didn't understand the situation. What qualifications did he have to negotiate conditions now? But Gon could actually come up with a reason. He said that even if Hanzo cut off his foot, he still wouldn't admit defeat. But if the time dragged on, he would eventually die from excessive blood loss. So no matter how powerful Hanzo was, he would still end up kneeling on the ground, begging Gon not to die. So it's better to listen to him. Hanzo was a little confused for a moment. He couldn't understand what Gon was saying. At this point, everyone in the audience laughed. They thought it was ridiculous. Killua was a little confused. Gon hadn't become stronger, but the whole battle became funny because of him. Killua really couldn't understand Gon anymore, but he knew clearly that no matter how confusing Gon's words were, it couldn't change the fact that his strength was not enough. After all, strength is everything. Hanzo didn't want to be confused by Gon's words anymore. He swung his knife and left a blood mark on Gon's head. Hanzo stared at Gon's defiant eyes and couldn't understand. Wasn't it just a matter of admitting defeat? Gon was only 12 years old. What would happen if he came back next year? Is dignity more important than life? Even if he killed Gon now, he would just come back next year. Gon replied that he wanted to meet his father because his father was a hunter, so he also wanted to be a hunter like his father. And if he gave up now, he might never see his father again. Seeing that Gon was determined, Hanzo finally put away his weapon and said that he admitted defeat because he didn't know how to make Gon surrender. It was better to admit defeat than to be deadlocked. But Gon was not happy about this. Didn't we say we would find a solution together? Hanzo was speechless. Was this a game of make-believe? He didn't expect that Gon would win the first match by refusing to admit defeat and pretending to be dead. It felt a bit unfair. In a vast white mist, Gon ran up the stairs continuously. He saw a tall figure standing at the end of the thick fog. That figure seemed familiar to Gon, as if he had seen it somewhere before. It seemed to be his long-lost father. However, as he felt someone approaching from behind, the figure turned around. And just as Gon is about to see his face, the stairs beneath him suddenly collapse. Gon falls into the abyss. He suddenly sits up and realizes that it was just a dream. Saditz is sitting next to him. Seeing Gon wake up, Saditz takes the chair sitting next to him. He tells Gon that they are in the lounge next to the final experimental venue. Although Gon is covered in injuries, he has become the first hunter this year to pass all the tests. Saditz congratulates him, but Gon is clearly not happy. He indeed won without a fight. However, Saditz clearly understands Gon's thoughts. He tells Gon that since he has already passed the test, he shouldn't think about anything else. The Hunter Association will never eliminate him. If he feels that he is not worthy of being a hunter, he can do whatever he wants with the hunter license. And getting the hunter license is just the beginning. What's more important is what he does after obtaining the license. So, after hearing Saditz's words, Gon seems less resistant. He takes his license from Saditz. Perhaps he can repay all the debts he owes and then consider how to use it. After figuring out his own problems, Gon starts to care about others. So he asks Saditz if the tests are still ongoing, only to find out that all the tests have already ended. And the last person to be eliminated was Killua. This surprises Gon. Killua's strength couldn't possibly be the last, right? So he is eager to know what happened. Saditz then tells Gon what happened after he fainted. At that time, Killua asked Hanzo why he let Gon off. Hanzo said that he had interrogated countless people, and after they were abused, their eyes would show varying degrees of hatred. This light of hatred is the manifestation of their true thoughts. Even if you have undergone rigorous training, there will be a moment of true emotion when you are being abused. But Gon's eyes didn't have this light. Even when a knife was pressed against Gon's forehead, even when Gon's left hand was just broken, there was no hatred or anger in his eyes. And such a person is truly terrifying. Hanzo didn't think that anyone could really make Gon surrender. The second battle was between Kurapika and Hisoka. The outcome was already decided with just one encounter. Kurapika definitely couldn't beat Hisoka. But surprisingly, after a few words with Kurapika, Hisoka directly surrendered. This puzzled many people. The third match was between Hanzo and Pakal. The battle quickly turned into a one-sided output from Hanzo. But Pakal was not Gon. He couldn't replicate Gon's achievements. So under Hanzo's pressure, Pakal quickly surrendered. The fourth match was between Hisoka and an old man named Badoro. The old man had strong bones and didn't surrender even after being beaten all over. But in the end, when Hisoka whispered something in his ear, Badoro also surrendered. The fifth match was between Killua and the boy with the pink hat, Pakal. As soon as the match started, Killua surrendered. He probably felt that Pakal's strength was completely insufficient to fight against him, so he wanted to challenge a higher difficulty. Then he made the biggest mistake. When Gitaraker took off the nen pins from his face one by one, his face became more and more handsome, and Killua became more and more panicked. He finally realized that Gitaraker was actually his older brother, Illumi, in disguise. Feeling the heavy love from his older brother, Killua was sweating profusely and could hardly move. At this moment, Illumi told Killua that he came here after stabbing their mother. He said that their mother was in tears. Leorio's, who was watching from the side, nodded repeatedly. With a son like this, their mother must be crying, right? But then Illumi said that their mother was crying tears of joy. He said that Killua had finally grown up. But Killua is still too young, and their mother is worried about him being alone outside, so she asked their older brother, Illumi, to take care of Killua. The obedient Illumi has been keeping an eye on Killua's whereabouts. Unexpectedly, Killua came to take the hunter exam. Coincidentally, Illumi also needed a hunter license for work, so the two brothers met like this. At this point, Killua quickly denies that he wants to become a hunter. He just came here out of boredom. As a result, Illumi's expression suddenly changes. His eyes began to rotate like the Sharingan, and he looked extremely sinister. He told Killua that he was not suitable to be a hunter. The most suitable profession for Killua was only an assassin. Killua was someone who had no desires or ambitions. He didn't have any thoughts of pursuing anything, except when he came into contact with death, he would feel excited. So, what exactly was Killua pursuing? Did he want to become a hunter? Killua's eyes trembled, and his body was already soaked in sweat from panic. But he still spoke the words from the bottom of his heart. Indeed, he didn't come here because he wanted to become a hunter. But even so, he had something he wanted to pursue. However, Illumi directly refuted him. This statement instantly stirred up Killua's emotions. He loudly replied that he did have something he wanted to pursue. And afterwards, under Illumi's intense love pressure, Killua finally gathered the courage to say that he wanted to be friends with Gon. He was already tired of killing and wanted to be like a normal child, playing and laughing under the sun. But at this moment, Illumi directly denied all of Killua's thoughts. He seemed to brainwash Killua and told him that someone like him could never make friends. His judgment of people was only based on whether he could kill them or not. Killua was just too dazzling at the moment. As long as Killua continued to stay by Gon's side, he would eventually be unable to resist the impulse in his heart and kill Gon to test himself. Upon hearing this, Killua was already trembling all over. He clenched his fists and wanted to deny it, but he didn't know if he really was like Illumi said. Leorios couldn't bear to watch anymore. He shouted at Killua, "No matter what you think, for Gon, you are already his good friend." Unexpectedly, upon hearing this, Illumi suddenly had a flash of inspiration. "It doesn't matter, we just need to kill Gon. Then Killua won't have any friends." Without hesitation, he started searching for Gon. Anyone who dared to stop him would be hit with a prayer bead. But Kurapika, Leorios, and Hanzo were not afraid of his power. They stood in front of Illumi. Only then did Illumi remember that he was supposed to participate in the hunter exam. If he killed Gon now, he wouldn't be able to obtain his hunter license. So he decided to postpone his plan to kill and test Killua. He turned around and walked towards the arena. He had to continue his match with Killua. But at this point, Killua's fighting spirit had already been completely suppressed by Illumi. He was taught by Illumi, how could he have the courage to fight his big brother? Killua couldn't even bring himself to look at Illumi and ultimately surrendered in a drenched sweat. After that, Killua seemed to have lost his soul. He ignored anyone who spoke to him. Later on, when Killua and Badoro were fighting, he directly attacked and killed Badoro. This violating the rules of the hunter exam and Killua getting eliminated. Leorios truly lived up to being a chosen uncle, as the hunter exam just took a step forward. After hearing everything, Gon couldn't bear it anymore. How could Illumi treat his brother Killua like that? He had to rush to Killua's side immediately to give him strength. But when Gon arrived at the Grand Hall, Killua was already gone. So Gon went straight to Illumi and asked him to apologize to Killua. He said, "Illumi, you have no right to be Killua's brother." Illumi found it a bit amusing. What qualifications do real brothers need to talk about? Upon hearing this, Gon instantly became angry. He grabbed Illumi's hand and threw him to the ground. Gon's grip on Illumi's hand was so strong that it seemed like he was about to break it. He told Illumi, "Making friends with others doesn't require any qualifications. Killua left because of you, so you must apologize to Killua and tell me where Killua went." As Gon and Illumi confronted each other, Netero, the chairman, walked over. He said that just now, Kurapika, Leorios, and other were all questioning whether it was appropriate to eliminate Killua. Before the battle with Illumi, Killua had been fine. It was only after Illumi disturbed his mind that Killua started behaving strangely. So they had reason to believe that Illumi had given Killua some negative psychological suggestions, even suggesting that Killua might have been hypnotized by Illumi. Pakal raised doubts about Kurapika's match as well. Why did Hisoka, who was clearly winning, suddenly admit defeat? He wanted to know what Hisoka had said. But for Kurapika, Pakal was lying down and winning directly because of Killua's surrender. Suddenly, the whole hall became chaotic. Everyone was blaming each other and doubting the fairness of this assessment. Gon couldn't stand it anymore. The fight between these people has nothing to do with him. He just wanted to know about Killua's situation. In fact, it didn't matter if he didn't pass the hunter exam once. He could still sign up next year. But Gon wouldn't allow Killua to be treated unfairly like this. If Killua really became a killer without morals, facing the world like the grasslands, he would never spare Illumi. Gon's words were full of confidence, making Illumi very curious. How would Gon deal with himself? Gon also said that he wouldn't deal with you, he would only take Killua away from you demons. For a while, everyone was silent. The room became very quiet. At this time, Netero, the chairman, suddenly spoke. That is, no matter what others think of this hunter test, the result of eliminating Killua will not change. Seeing that no one mentioned anything meaningful anymore, the bean-faced man began to explain the benefits of a hunter license. With this little card, you have status, identity, wealth, and privileges. Therefore, hunters must protect their cards well. If you accidentally lose it, the association will not reissue it. At this point, Chairman Netero officially announced that the 7 people present were the ones who passed the hunter test this year: Kurapika, Gon, Leorios, Pakal, Hisoka, Hanzo, and Illumi. After the certificate ceremony, Gon came to find Illumi again. He was determined to find Killua and rescue him from the dangerous situation. Illumi looked at Gon and then looked at Kurapika and Leorios behind Gon. He finally revealed where Killua might be. Killua should have returned to his home, Kukurumutan, and challenged himself if he dared. Gon, Kurapika, and Leorios turned and left. As soon as they left, Hisoka appeared from behind Illumi. He was very curious why Illumi, as a killer, would expose his lair to others. But Illumi didn't care at all. The powerful Zoldyck family was not afraid of being robbed. But he was interested in Gon. Looking at his arm, he really wanted to kill Gon first. However, Hisoka immediately threatened coldly. Gon was his prey. Gon and the others were planning to investigate where Kukuru Mountain was. At this time, Hanzo happened to be packing his luggage and saying goodbye to them. The hunter test was over, and he was going back to his own country. Just as Hanzo left, Pakal also came out to apologize to Gon. He was a little excited just now, so he said some unpleasant things. He hoped that Kurapika wouldn't take it to heart. But Kurapika naturally wasn't petty. After Pakal left, he told the others that he planned to travel the world next and find creatures that have not been confirmed yet, becoming a true beast hunter. This reminded me of Chimera Act and a sad ending for Pakal. He really should exercise his strength first. Because Pakal had a lot of hunter information, Gon wanted him to help check if there was any information about Jing freaks. However, he learned that it was confidential. But Gon seemed to be mentally prepared for this. After Pakal left, Saditz suddenly came to find Gon. He told Gon that his previous job was to excavate and repair relics. He always pursued fame and fortune, but later he saw a hunter who dug up relics and used his private property to repair and manage them, using his own power to allow ordinary people to visit and know the greatness of the relics. His actions have been regarded as a model by the whole world and are available for all hunters to refer to and learn from. The name of this person is Jing Freaks, the person Saditz admires the most. Hearing this, Gon's face turned red with excitement. His father was so amazing. At this time, Saditz once again expressed his admiration for Jing to Gon. Watching Gon leave excitedly, Saditz was also very happy. Kurapika began to search for information about Kukuru Mountain. Unexpectedly, the home of such a killer organization turned out to be a local tourist attraction. Ordinary tourists can visit it. No wonder Illumi didn't hide it at all. So the 3 of them agreed immediately and prepared to go to Kukuru Mountain. Gon was very excited. He was about to bring Killua out of the dangerous situation.